Let me start over. So just real briefly, we're going to have a shorter meeting today. A lot of our federal and state partners are committed to wildfires. Boone is also assigned to a fire, the Bootleg Fire, as a fire behavior analyst, so he won't be joining us today. But we did still want to hold the meeting and have an opportunity to get a little bit of information out to y'all and maybe a short roundtable as well. So that's what we have planned for today. Did anybody have any, before we move on, any questions about the past minutes?
No.
Okay. And then again, if you haven't yet, appreciate if you just put your name and affiliation in the chat box so I can capture that for the notes. And with that, I'm just going to provide one or two bullet points on a program update. The main one to share with y'all is that we have been working on the Greater Bend Community Wildfire Protection Plan. That's our plan to update for 2021. We are at the point of having a draft available for broader review. And we are also planning on having a, I guess, a community meeting. And that is planned for this Thursday at 3 p.m. We do have a separate mailing list for that, for people that have indicated that they're interested. But if you haven't got that information, you're interested in attending that short presentation on the Bend CWPP and what we've been revising, get a hold of me and I'll make sure you get the information for that meeting. That will be a virtual meeting as well. And then we will be putting that document out for public review and comment. I believe we're going to run that through the end of September. So you'll have plenty of time to look that document over, give us any comments of any other revisions that you would like to see in that. So, so that's the main thing. Along with that, we have been working on a new story map. And that is not specific to the Bend CWPP, but just CWPPs in general, and trying to tie all those together. And I'm going to just share that. I'm going to share the link in the chat. And I'm also just going to show you on the screen. Is that coming through for folks?
Yes.
Reach out. Okay, great. So worked on the story map to just kind of try to pull together all the community wildfire protection plans in the county as kind of a maybe one-stop shop for where you can find information about CWPPs and kind of how they fit together and blend together. So this is still kind of a work in progress, but we're at the point of, you know, looking for feedback on it. So I will share the link to this in the chat. But essentially, we've got these sections here at the top, an overview of what CWPPs are, how to navigate this website or the story map, the planning areas, how we're using the new Oregon Wildfire Risk Explorer for the community assessment of risk, a rundown on protection capabilities throughout the county, and then a little bit on action plan and implementing CWPPs. So there are several interactive maps in here. The first one just breaks down the different plan areas so you can see how those all fit in with each other. And again, at any time you can kind of zoom around in there and see where those plan boundaries are. And then as you scroll down, it also shows where we've defined the wildland urban interface within each of those plans. It also has an interactive map on the different vegetation types throughout the county, and a little bit of description on what those vegetation types are from kind of a high level. So you can scroll in and actually click on areas and see what the vegetation types are. And get a little pop-up that describes what it is. So just for the people that are kind of new to the community wildfire protection plans, just a little bit about what those are and how the risk assessment fits in. So this links to the Oregon Wildfire Risk Explorer. We picked out a few layers to show, but then we do have a link to the Wildfire Risk Explorer as well. So if people want to look at that in greater detail, they can. So yeah, we picked out 3 or 4 different data layers and imported them into this story map to kind of show the different things. And I know there's lots of detail here that I'm kind of skimming over, but I'm just giving you just a little bit of an overview. This one shows the different fire protection districts throughout the county, and then zooms into each of those in greater detail. And then finally, we get down to the action plan and implementation. So anyway, again, there's lots of detail there that we won't necessarily dive into, but if you want to check that out, please do. And let me paste that link into the chat. So there's the link if you all want to check that out on your own time. And if you want to send us any feedback to Boone or that'd be great. Just a new tool we've developed to kind of communicate a little bit more on community wildfire protection plans. So with that, that's really what I had for a program update. So we thought we'd do just a couple shorter topics for today's meeting. First one being, I think that it's on everybody's mind. And at the time we were thinking about this, we were thinking that, well, you know, we know that evacuations can happen at any time, but didn't really think that we'd have 2 larger fires under our belt with level 3 evacuations, but we have had that in the last week. With that, to set the stage, we asked Nathan to join us and just give a little bit of you know, refresher on evacuations and how they're working in Deschutes County. So thanks for joining us, Nathan.
Yeah, absolutely, Ed. I have I just kind of put together more of just a slide deck just to help guide me so I don't get too off a goat trail. So I don't know if I can share my screen yet.
Should be able to.
Okay. For some reason my pop-up bar is hiding the main controls. There we go. All right. Can everybody see? It's a real simple slide deck on there. Okay, good deal. Well, as Ed mentioned, you know, I think it's pretty timely. We're going to talk about evacuations, and I just kind of want to set the stage here a little bit. Is that, you know, evacuations are really a community responsibility. You know, it starts with the community member and their preparation and your preparation to ensure that you and your family, your home, are prepared to evacuate, that you know what to do, that you know how to get out of your neighborhood or your community, that you're signed up for alerts and all that. And then, you know, it kind of elevates up through operationally, people like in my shoes and fire managers to make good tactical decisions about what areas that should be evacuated, and then policymakers that approve those. And then ultimately, you know, as we grow and we strive to be more adapted to fire in our community, like what kind of things can we do to not only make evacuation safer and more effective, but also to maybe even potentially limit the need for them later down the road. So, I mean, I think it's kind of it's just a little piece of that cohesive strategy. You know, our office, we try to be very diligent in fitting into that safe and coordinated fire response and ensuring that we're part of the team and helping serve the community. I just wanted to start off with a slide, and this is kind of a simplified version that I thought showed up a little bit better on maybe a PowerPoint or online of our evacuation quick guide. And And so I want to start with just covering the levels of evacuation. So in 2014, Oregon adopted a 3-level ready, set, go evacuation methodology. And that was done in concert with Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office, Oregon Department of Forestry, Oregon State Sheriff's Association, Oregon Fire Chiefs Association. And all those groups agreed on this methodology. The thought behind this methodology, it's a little different if you're from California, where they have, I think they use advisories, warnings, and orders. So in California, they'll issue a mandatory evacuation order. In most cases, Oregon does not issue mandatory evacuation orders. I believe by statute, actually, only the county commissioners by emergency declaration can declare a mandatory evacuation. And I can't think of a time, at least in my memory, that that's been utilized, at least here in Central Oregon. We make the recommendations. We encourage at a level 3 go now evacuation that you do leave and that you get out of the way of a fire for a number of reasons. One, and primarily for your safety, for the community's safety, but also having people inside a level 3 evacuation where a number of fire resources are operating, including aircraft, and it just gets a little dangerous, gets a little crowded, and it's certainly a risk to everybody involved. And if you decide to wait or ride it out, you may regret that decision, and it might be too late to do that, to change your mind down the road. So even though you're not gonna, in most cases, at least that I can foresee, you're not going to have a deputy or an officer show up at your house and arrest you for not evacuating. We certainly do encourage people that level 3 go now really does mean level 3 and go. So those levels are level 1 ready, level 2 set, and level 3 go. So really, if you think of it along the lines of what those actually mean, level 1 or ready is really, there's an incident in your area. In most cases, we use these for wildland fires, but we could use them for other events. But there's a fire in your area, you need to be paying real close attention. If you have family members or livestock or things with other special evacuation needs, probably now is the time to be evaluating what you're going to do, how you're going to get out, and start putting those plans into place. At level 2, however, I would argue that level 2 really is kind of really an evacuation notice. If level 1 was kind of pre-evacuation, get ready, level 2 is set. This may be the only warning you get. Oftentimes evacuations change really rapidly. You need to be able to leave at a moment's notice. At the very least, your vehicle should be packed. You should be backed into your driveway and ready to go, and be paying real close attention to notifications, the news, and what's going on in your neighborhood. And then level 3 is go now. I do want to mention, though, that I think lots of times people like to think, and even myself, I get into this thought that it's going to progress from 1, 2, 3, and oftentimes it will go right to 3. And particularly when you get an evacuation that starts in or near a developed area or community. The Darlene fire is a prime example. That fire started pretty close to a subdivision, and it was burning rapidly towards that subdivision. That was kind of one of those situations where it skipped right over 1 and 2 and went right to 3 for those people directly in the path of that fire. Rabbit brush fire from a couple years ago is a prime example. Also, it started within a developed area and was burning actually through a developed area, at time of call. So that went right to level 3. The other thing I wanted to cover is make sure that you're signed up for Deschutes alerts, and make sure that your profile is current. This system allows you to manage how you are notified and the different contact paths, but it does require, well, we hope that people log in periodically and make sure that their information is accurate. If you move, this registration does not necessarily move with you. So if you move within Deschutes County, we ask you to log in and change your address, make sure that your information is correct. If you move outside of Deschutes County, we ask that you sign up for the county that you're now residing in.
Nathan, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
I went to actually check on mine on Sunday when the swamp wildfire broke out, because that's just a couple of miles away.
Mhm.
And when I when I go to the website, I go to forget password, and it says the username is invalid. But then when I go to try to re-sign up, it says that username is taken. Is there someone at the county or Deschutes 911 that could help with technical issues like that?
Yeah, if you, Ed, could you plug my email in the chat? And if you email me, I'll forward you to, we have a couple folks that are really good at troubleshooting that. And I can also, but we'll make sure we get that troubleshoot. I've heard that happening before too. So
Awesome.
I'm sure we can figure that out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
Nathan, this is Greg Bryant. Could I ask you something on level 3?
Sure.
And that's not some, my contention is, if you're at level 3 and if you don't leave, you might be putting emergency staff at risk of unnecessary harm, because they might try to come in and try to save you when they could be out there doing the fire fighting
Yeah,
fire.
suppression
So
activity. For sure.
my thing is, people that stay when they're in level 3, they're awful selfish. I mean, that's my contention.
Yeah.
And that's
Sure.
what I don't want to have the staff being in harm's way just because somebody's staying at level 3.
Yeah. Well, I think that boils down to transfer of risk, right? So, I mean, that's what we do every day in emergency services, is we manage that risk. There's a saying in the fire service, there's kind of a value in the fire service that says you risk a little to save a little, you risk a lot to save a lot, right? When human lives are at risk, fire personnel inherently, it's part of their DNA, it's part of our DNA in public safety to do whatever we can. And I think sometimes you're right that there is a transfer of risk. Now, I appreciate those sentiments. I'm not gonna, I think people.
I understand, but
I get it. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that is one of the good reasons why I do evacuate is it allows firefighters and suppression personnel to be putting their efforts at stopping the fire and suppression activities, not worrying about whether somebody's in a house or not in a house and that.
Exactly.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to finish on the Deschutes alerts is, so just earlier this year, Deschutes County signed on. We're maintaining the same system as we've always had. It's called Everbridge is the vendor that provides our mass notification tool. But Oregon as a state contracted with Everbridge and at cost savings to the counties, contracted with Everbridge to provide it for any county or tribal government in the state of Oregon. And so we are signed up through that. It's called Or Alert for our local community members, that you should see no functional difference. We are getting a few add-ons that, excuse me, we hadn't paid for in the past, and we're learning to utilize those. And so hopefully, it'll get even better as we start to utilize a few functions that we hadn't been using in the past. But so it is through Everbridge. It does, we do have the capability in emergency alerts to notify people through what's called the iPOS system, and that's Integrated Public Alert and Warning System. So that's the EAS, and that's the wireless emergency alert. So unless you've opted out on your cell phone, or your cell phone is so old, which I don't know if cell phones live this long anymore, but you should be automatically signed up if you buy a new cell phone for those WIA. Now, I want to give that a caveat. There's some limitations to both of those systems and some challenges to both of those systems. Namely, you're notifying people that you didn't want to notify of a specific message. So it's a little dicey. We will likely, and this has been the opinion of most of my counterparts around the state, will most likely utilize those for those just scenarios where we're not comfortable that we're making good notifications. And I'll give you a prime example. I think last month there was a fire in Klamath County, and they utilize the EAS system. And I didn't hear it, but I heard from a number of folks that Bend radio stations were broadcasting those, and it caused some confusion. I got a few calls like, hey, what's going on? How come? And so there's some challenges with those. So, but in certain circumstances, they're appropriate. So, and the other thing I wanted to highlight on this is we only send emergency alerts through, the actual evacuation alerts to those that are are in the area. And so you don't get to see it as a community member, what it looks like on our end, but basically what it looks like on our end is we pick a template. So, okay, this is a level 3 evacuation. And then we draw a polygon on the map, or we import a polygon depending on how we're doing it. And only those contacts that have their address reflected in that polygon are going to get that notification. So I get regularly, somebody will call and want to know why they didn't get a notification. It's because they were outside the line. They weren't in the polygon, and that's by design. So we really want to focus these messages on those people that need to hear it the most. So after you've made sure that you're registered for alerts, we also want you to think of some situations where there might be some special evacuation needs. I think the reality of it is if people rely on the government to take care of all of these issues, that we're probably in trouble. And it's not because we don't try and we don't throw a lot of resources at it. It's just that these are very time sensitive. And in most cases, it's almost impossible to know every person that might have a special need. So we ask people with special needs, or if you know somebody with special evacuation need, in your community, a family member, a friend, somebody that you are a caretaker for, that you walk through some planning specific to those special evacuation needs. And I'm just going to highlight a few of these. So like mobility impaired. If somebody is mobility impaired, it's going to take longer to evacuate. What is the plan? How to get them out? Can obviously want to leave a little sooner. Does that take special equipment or a vehicle to get them out? So try to plan through some of these as much as possible. No driver or no vehicle. So there are people live in our community that either by virtue of their circumstance, they don't drive or can't drive anymore, or they don't have a vehicle. So what's the plan? Is there a neighbor that can pick them up on the way out? Are there some other plans in place? Medical needs, if people have certain special medical needs, make sure that those are planned for, that, in your 72-hour kit, that you make sure that you've got the necessary equipment and medications ready to go and to go with you when you evacuate. Pets, huge. We don't want you to forget about your pets. In most cases, we'll get, the pet evacuation team has been really supportive of helping people at Red Cross shelters. If a lot of people are reluctant to evacuate without their pets, so grab your pets, evacuate, and when you get to the shelter, the temporary evacuation point, we'll try to support you. And usually that has been the pet evacuation team has set up little kind of mini animal shelters just outside the shelter. And large animals, this is a big one. Large animals, whether it's horses or livestock, pigs, whatever the kind of livestock of choice is, have a plan for that. Is your trailer big enough? Do you have a neighbor with a trailer that can also grab the rest of your critters? It becomes really problematic when we rely on people from outside the area coming in with big, long stock trailers trying to grab as many critters as possible. We're thankful that people are willing to help, but it can create a bit of a traffic challenge, as well as a containment challenge, is trying to make sure that we're getting people out of harm's way. So if to the degree possible, if you can have a plan in place, with you and your neighbors and your immediate vicinity to get all the critters out, that's best. And then the last one I wanted to cover, and we've experienced this too a couple different times, are kids at home. So oftentimes, most of the time, these fires are occurring in the summer. Kids might be in school, and parents are at work. So, these are good conversations to be having. If you're in that circumstance, if is there a neighbor on each side that is trustworthy that you can say, okay, you need to go to this house and get out, or that you've talked with your neighbors about, hey, would you please check on my kids if there's ever an evacuation? Would you please take them with you? Things like that. Again, you run into the situation of parents rushing home from work, trying to because they've got the notification on their phone, rushing home, and they run into roadblocks or they run into traffic snarls because, evacuations impact traffic pretty significantly. So again, to the degree possible, if you can get all your family members, both the non-furry ones and the ones with, that bark and meow out the first time, without having to go in to get them, it's always best. The other thing I wanted to cover real quick is evacuation routes. In almost all cases, your best evacuation route is the one that you come and go from every day. These are the routes that have been designed to handle the development. We do know that traffic infrastructure is not built for a mass exodus. We do know this, but in most cases, the routes that you come and go from every day are probably the best designed routes out there. They're probably the best you're going to get. But to that point is, if you know alternate routes out of your neighborhood and your community, I would encourage you to explore those, drive those periodically, make sure your family members know those. Because sometimes some transportation routes get blocked, they get backed up, fire could impinge on them. So it's always good to have a second route out. The other point of this is leave early. So the longer you take, the longer the more people are going to be in front of you. So, encourage you to leave early by designing evacuations, we try to get adequate time to get out. Sometimes we're not, we're dealt a different hand, but we try to give people opportunity to get out. So we encourage you to leave early once that notification has been issued. And then I just wanted to follow up on emergency gates. Emergency gates, there's a few of them around the county in different subdivisions. These are almost always locked, and there's a reason for that. Lots of these gates require pretty significant coordination to open. Some of these put people out onto single 2-track roads with, probably less safe than some of the normal routes. And so we would utilize these gates in very specific circumstances that are coordinated. And we would direct people to those gates if those were the appropriate way to get out and the safest way to get out. I see, we have one down in DRW. It takes some coordination. We have a plan in place to utilize it. But in most cases, for that gate, there's that little thumb down there of Deschutes River Woods down there south of like Cherokee in that area, I think, if I'm getting my roads right. Yeah. That's kind of an isolated little peninsula, or so to speak, of DRW that, if for whatever reason that route was blocked and those people, those residents needed to evacuate. That's the other component, is sometimes they don't need to evacuate at that moment. So, we would look at opening that gate if that was the most viable way out. And there's a few other subdivisions around the county that have these gates. And I just want to encourage people that you don't assume because you've seen this gate there that that's your best way out. In most cases, your best way out is the way you go out every day. And then real quick, I just wanted to cover how we notify people. And I want to break this up into 2 different groups. So there's evacuated, and then there's currently unaffected but interested, right? Which tends to be the entire county. But if you're within that polygon, you should get, and you're signed up, you should get a Deschutes alert notification. Also encourage people to watch local news and media, watch social media. I would encourage you to watch the Sheriff's Office social media, Central Oregon Fire social media, the county's social media. Some of the fire districts have pretty solid social media. Those are really official, in the city, sorry. Those are official sites. We try very hard to get that information out there right and correct. Sometimes social media can be a blessing and a curse. Really great at sharing information, but sometimes it allows information that may not be completely accurate because it's either outdated or somebody heard something on a scanner and might have taken some implications from that weren't exactly accurate. So we really encourage you to follow those official social media sites. And a number of our local news media sources are really great about trying to get that information right and get it out pretty quick too. Door to door, when possible, in level 3 for sure, and level 2 when we can. We try to do door to doors, and so that's a deputy, in most cases a deputy, sometimes state troopers, sometimes city police, sometimes other agencies, sometimes fire agencies would come to your door and let you know that you're in an evacuation area. And then that Deschutes.org/emergency, that's a link to a web map that we get those evacuation zones up on that web map, usually within a few minutes of getting the alerts out. Sometimes it takes a little longer. Technology sometimes is technology. And sometimes use on that site makes it pretty busy. So just if it looks like it's not working, sometimes it's just being over, there's so many people on the site. We're constantly working on those issues. Yeah, Greg.
I've got another question pertaining to this door-to-door thing. I know that on a window we've got we got 2 pets in our house. Okay, now how do you guys know if the pets are still there? If I've evacuated and the pets aren't there anymore, or if they're still here?
Well, if you've evacuated and taken your pets down, maybe take that sign down if you can.
Okay.
Or leave a note on the front door. Probably what they would do, and I can't speak for every circumstance, but
Sure.
And it really depends on how fast things are going. If they're really running and gunning and trying to get to as many people, they may not take as much time at each place.
Sure.
But might walk around your house, look in the windows, see if looks like there's animals or whatnot. But yeah, that can be a challenge. We have to prioritize human life first.
Sure.
And I know that some of us, I'm an animal lover myself. Sometimes that's that's pretty painful. So, and then I did want to just note that if you're under an evacuation level, but maybe you live in the area or the neighborhood, and maybe like I would say the areas out Woodside Ranch, Conestoga, Sundance, Horse Butte area the other night, Sunday night on that Swamp Wells Trail would fit into this category. You're not immediately threatened. There's no, fire is actually burning away from town. No evacuations in order, but you see smoke out there, you want to know what's going on, right? So that's kind of the everybody else category, particularly those that are right on the fringe. And if you'll notice, really, there's pretty much we get information except without that Deschutes alerts, right? And then CentralOregonFire.org is a great source of information. And I know that the PIOs from the Forest Service and Oregon Department of Forestry and others have been working on getting some of those CO fire text notifications also for just kind of hey, let you know there's a fire here type situation. So it's constant trying to improve. And then I just kind of wanted to just highlight back to this slide, a couple things is, there's a lot you can do before fire season, right? And part of this is evacuations are just one slice of that cheese. And that if you're thinking of this along the Swiss cheese model, that's kind of become popular lately, evacuations are just one slice of that cheese. So, what are you doing around your home and fire, being fire adapted. So defensible space, home mitigation zones, are you talking, about mitigations around your home and your community, right? So all of this is equally important. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on was after evacuation. If you are evacuated, we do ask that you go to the temporary evacuation point or the shelter and check in, or you can go online and redcross.org safe and well. And because we do periodically get calls from people that are wanting to know, hey, what's going on with my family member. And these are some ways that people can connect with their family members. So with that's all I had. I'm going to quit sharing.
Nathan, there's a couple of questions in the chat box. The first one from Jane was there any issues when the zip code changed from 01 to 03?
Yeah, there was. And I think for a while, people still had to use that O1 in the system. I think that's fixed now.
Okay. And second one was Commissioner Dare saying that she was told to put a pillowcase over the mailbox when they had evacuated. Is there guidance around that?
Yeah, you know what if you think of like, thanks for bringing that up, Patty. So we utilize some systems to help us kind of track, at a windshield's glance on whether somebody's evacuated. And if you have evacuated, and you can hang a white towel on your mailbox or your fence post or your doorknob if you're in town and more of an urban area, that gives us just an idea like, oh, okay, well, we might come back to that place, but let's hit the neighbor that doesn't have that. So that just helps us kind of gauge on whether somebody might be evacuated. We'll probably still come back and just double check. But that does help us just kind of prioritize, particularly in an evacuation when, we have a lot of people to evacuate and not a lot of time.
Nathan, my neighbors were told they were level 2. And of course, I moved all my horses Sunday night because I drove to Redmond to fill my pickup up with gas and saw how huge it looked. And I have 5 horses and a 3-horse trailer. So of course I moved them all then just because you cannot move horses in a panic. It's really it's a horrible idea. So anyway, but the fact that those neighbors were told they were level 2, which wasn't very far. It was 2 miles from us. And in fire terms, I don't think that's that far, depending on where the wind is going. So when something like that happens, because level 2 to me sounds really scary. Like if you're saying that could be the only notice you get, and should they have been ridge hold or something? Because I let my neighbor know. I said no, because when I figured out the map was one level, it was up here. The red was up here, and then Gold Coast was a ways from that. Yeah. I know these things happen, but it just seemed kind of like a lot of things happened. And personally, my husband felt like there wasn't enough information out there, and he was like, "There's not enough information. I need more up-to-date information." The local news would be the same at 11 at night that it was at 5 in the morning. But I want you to know he didn't pack one thing. And I had my horse trailer packed and my pickup packed. So yeah, I know, but he wanted more information. So, thank you for getting that fire out at 6,000 acres. And fortunately, I don't think we lost any structures in the Grandview. So that was really, that's wonderful news. Now, how do we get the bootleg fire stopped? I mean, honestly and truly, it's almost 400,000 acres. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Yeah. Is there more equipment going to stop that fire now? I noticed that it was partially contained.
Yeah, well, thanks, Commissioner Dare. Yeah, I think, every once in a while, during these evacuations, I think what happened in that case is somebody talked to your neighbor and thought they were in a level 2 evacuation and weren't. That's just a briefing challenge and making sure that the folks talking to people have exactly the right information. And as far as Grandview, I think that was a great example of just a really solid coordinated fire response. It went well. It was fortunate that the fire behavior moderated at night, and they were able to get resources around it and get it hooked. That bootleg situation, Ed probably knows a heck of a lot more about it than I do, but I think that's just one of those that I don't know that there's enough fire equipment in the country to get in front of that and to build it's really just how big a box are you going to build to catch that sucker in. So I don't know what Ed thinks about that.
So do we know why the Grandview fire started? Nathan, do you have any clue?
I don't have a cause on it. No, I don't.
Okay. Yeah. Commissioner Similek had said they were burning my campaign signs. But it started in Jefferson County. So I'm going like, Kelly, that is an heist. Yeah. We love Kelly.
Nathan, there's a couple more questions we could get to real quickly, and then
absolutely
get to the next topic. And
sounds good.
But I think these are a couple that come up pretty frequently. So one is people are maybe reluctant because of leaving all their belongings behind. So if you could address how the sheriff's office might, patrol in areas. And then the other one is people without addresses that are, and there's a lot of them nowadays that are living next to town, or is there any way to notify those people?
Yeah. So, Bob, your first question, that's a really valid question. I was actually asked it the other night in a public meeting on the Grandview fire. And, you know, we endeavored to put extra patrols in those areas. There's quite a few resources in the area, whether it's fire resources, law enforcement, you know, so we can't guarantee the safety of people's property. Just like, you know, if you go on vacation, you know, you can't guarantee, or you go to work, you can't guarantee that somebody's not going to break into your property and steal your property. What I would say to that is that would be a good thing to, you know, in the off season, to take a look at your personal security around your home and identify ways that you can make it harder to make yourselves kind of harder to be a victim of theft or burglary. But, you know, for example, you know, we've had patrols in those evacuated areas from day one. We brought in some overtime staff on a number of the days, particularly as we started to open more areas up, to kind of have people in there, deputies in there. Our district cars were focusing a lot of their attention in those areas. So I can't think of, and, you know, probably about the first time I say this, so this is just my memory. I can't think of an occasion, at least in Deschutes County in recent time, that we've had a theft related to somebody who was evacuated. Now, that does not mean that that doesn't happen or can't happen. So I think it's kind of a shared responsibility again. Is like, you know, we'll do everything we can to patrol and provide some security, but, you know, obviously do everything you can to make your place harder to break into. And then the second question from Dean, yeah, I think that is a huge challenge for us, and you know, our deputies and we try to kind of know generally where those people are residing out in the forest and try to get to them. And you know, we did that on Swamp Wells Trail. You know, one of our deputies, you know, our deputies are kind of in that area quite a bit, so they kind of try to know where those places might be where they could get people out of the way of that fire. You know, we're working with, you know, we're providing some resources, some staff resources to county behavioral health team to try to address some just general planning around the unhoused or folks that are not living in kind of traditional settings, you know, that are residing out on the forest and other public lands. So, you know, as far as like, how do we plan for those, you know, for a variety of emergencies, you know, we're providing some staff time to that. So but it is a challenge. It's a very difficult thing to address, and you know, we operate under the belief that each life is important, and we want to make sure that if we can find those folks, we can get them out of the way. And you know, we had that situation last year in a couple fires too. So thank you for bringing that up.
The last question was, is there a way, or do you have a way of notifying people that don't have an address?
Well,
That just kind of face to face as the fire.
yeah. So if you sign up on the Deschutes alerts and you give an address, it should allow you to you know, you should see your location on a map and make sure. Now, if you don't have an address, I'm assuming that's kind of along the same lines as kind of folks that are camping, long-term camping.
Yes.
That's some of the challenges that we're trying to work through. And again, you know, we kind of have to ride that line of, you know, making sure that we're providing good public safety services, but that we're also not overly, I guess, being, you know, I don't know exactly how to explain it, but, you know, basically we're trying to work with those providers to get notifications. And so we've got a few strategies in mind to how we're going to address that. But again, that's kind of back to that other issue. That's a significant challenge.
Okay, thanks, Nathan. Evacuation is always a big topic with lots of questions. So I'm glad you could join us and provide some good timely insight on that topic. We just have a few minutes left. I do have One other item on the agenda before we go to roundtable, and our roundtable will probably be short. So I'd ask anybody that has an update, if you could use the raise hand feature, I'll call on you. But before we get to that, I did want to announce to people that we are going to do another round of community fuel reduction grants. The Board of Commissioners allocated additional dollars this year through their discretionary lottery funds. So the first, you might recall, this will be our third year of offering these to communities. The first year we had $40,000 in discretionary funding to try this out. It was very well received with a lot of applications and interest in this program. The next year, of course, the coronavirus came along and interrupted our discretionary funds, but we were still able to allocate $20,000 last year to that. We did 11 awards last year for that $20,000. The max award was $2,000, and awards range from $1,000 to $2,000. With that, those 11 communities had almost 500 lot owners participate in fuel reduction projects within those 11 communities. And one of the things we asked them to report on also is match. And for that $20,000 investment of the discretionary funds, those communities invested another $39,715 in cash to support those projects. And then the in-kind match, the volunteer time that community members put in, was worth another $109,565. So lots of good work got done this last spring with that $20,000 investment. So I'm really looking forward to offering this project, or the money for incentives for community projects again this year. We're going to have $100,000 available for communities, and the preference is for communities, not grants to individuals, but grants that get the whole community involved in doing defensible space work. And we will have a meeting specifically for people that are interested in applying for this, that will run through all the ins and outs of how to apply and what projects were successful in the last 2 years. So look for that. I anticipate a news release out to all our media partners, as well as a release that goes out to our Firewise communities here in the next couple weeks. And then we'll have that open for applications through the end of September. So you'll have some time as a community to put together a good project and propose it to us. And then we'll announce those shortly after the end of September. Frank, I see you're asking what the max award is. I think it'll probably be in the neighborhood of $5,000. We'll see, we'll make that final determination once we see how many applications we get, but I'm guessing we'll go back to the $5,000 max, which we had for the first year when we had $40,000 available. So look for that, look for more of that information in the future. It will follow along similar lines of the last 2 years as far as the application process, and really happy to be able to put that out to communities. I think we're getting a lot of good response and good work and coordination on fuels reduction over the last couple of years. So really looking forward to that. So with that, we have, oh yeah, Frank, the meeting for the grants, it's to be announced. I'll be working on that in the next week or so. And yeah, we'll probably offer a couple different dates so that if you can't make it on one date, you can make it on another. It won't be required for you to attend, but if you're new to applying for these, we're looking for the detailed information. That's the time we'll have for question and answer. And then Todd, is there a match on this? Yes, there's not a required percentage match, but we definitely ask you to show what your match is going to be. And if you have no match, it's likely that there's going to be enough competition that has match that you're not going to have a competitive project. So it doesn't have to be cash, it can be in kind. So a lot of those hours that people put in to do the defensible space work around their homes, or volunteer to treat a acreage around the community can go towards the match. So, and again, more opportunity to dive into detailed questions at one of those meetings coming up, likely scheduled for August. So we'll get that out here in the next week or two. And with that, we've got about 7 minutes for a roundtable. And I won't go down the whole list, so I'll just open it up for folks to either raise their hand or come off of mute, and offer a chance for anybody to share any information with the group that would be relevant for all of us to hear about. David, I see Red Cross probably has some updates.
Well, good morning. I apologize. I missed the first part of the meeting, but I did want to report on what Red Cross has been up to. We worked very closely with Nathan and Deschutes County on the Grandview and Darlene fires as far as setting up temporary evacuation points and shelters, and we thought that went really well. And we're actually ramping up for a longer term disaster response on the bootleg fire. We actually have a larger organization down there that's bringing in volunteers from around the country for a long-term disaster relief operation in response to the bootleg fire. But we do really appreciate the cooperation we have from Deschutes County and Jefferson County on the local fires we have. That's all I have.
Thanks, David. Anybody else with an update they'd like to share? Robert?
Yeah, hi, Ed. Just wanted to introduce myself. Robert Newey. Sorry, I joined the meeting late. New FMO here on the Newberry Division, Benfort Rock. And I know some folks here on the line, but just wanted to let everyone know about the Darlene fire and the Swamp Wells fire. Both are looking good, in the process of being turned back. Darlene went back to a Type 4 organization yesterday, and Swamp Wells is moving that direction likely tomorrow morning. And we'll be downsizing glide path probably the next 2 to 3 days of really being into a good controlled status. Just wanted to give that little bit of an update. But we do have additional resources staged here, wildland resources staged here, and continue to be staged out of Deschutes Fairgrounds. So thanks for the coordination and the cooperation there. So thanks, Ed.
Great. Anybody else? I would just share that if y'all might be wondering, we are planning to go back to having an in-person meeting, but with a virtual option next month. So we'll be back in the Armin room at 1300 Wall Street, downtown Bend, back to our regular meeting place if you used to meet with us there. But we have tried out integrating a virtual option. So those that either don't want to drive or can't join us in person, we'll have a Zoom link. We've tested out the audio and video. It seems to work okay. So we'll give that a try in August, unless something changes. And I see Nicole has an update there in the chat. So wrapping up the comprehensive plan for sisters, and provides a link if anybody wants to check out some more information related to how that plan integrates with Wildfire. Last call. Oh, okay, I've got Oliver and then Jody.
Yeah, I just, since my email address is wrong, so I missed last month's meeting. I did want to give praise to Boone for his help. We were successful in earning Firewise recognition for Sundance. So the test of concept of moving a neighborhood toward recognition despite not having any sort of formal neighborhood association, it worked, and has been great. Even Sunday, with the email list of neighbors we've been building, we're able to sort of communicate out about the Swamp Wells fire and remind everybody to make sure their go bag was packed and where to find resources and how to prepare. So I wish Boone were here, but I'll thank him in his absence.
Great, that's good news, Oliver. Thanks. And then Jody.
Good morning. Just wanted to update folks. Since your last meeting, for those that didn't know, I stepped into the Oregon Living with Fire co-coordinator role. So what Allison Green was doing. And we'll be working with Joe Stutler at the county on that. So a lot of you have my email address as a self-employed contractor, but you can also catch me at coordinator@OregonLivingWithFire.org. And just wanted to thank Ed and Nathan for this. I'm also on a type 2 incident management team. So I'm home for one day and then we'll probably head out on another fire. I just came off of the Darlene fire and expect our team to get assigned to somewhere else in the Pacific Northwest this week. So if you can't get a hold of me, that's probably where I'm at, but just wanted to say hi to some familiar faces and let you know of my new role working with Deschutes, Crook, Jefferson, and the northern part of Klamath County. Thanks.
All right, thanks. All right, I think we're just about out of time, but one last call if anybody had anything else to share. Okay, well, have a safe rest of your July and we'll see you back in August. Thanks for joining, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.